Everyone inside Toronto's Grand Hall had their eyes on Melanie Joly. Her voice was firm, her words cutting through the silence. When she said economic nationalism, the audience burst into applause. But while all eyes were on her, few noticed the man quietly sitting in the back, Mark Carney. He held a thin folder. Inside were 3 signed agreements. As Joly spoke, Donald Trump was busy typing on his phone, posting "Weak Canada" on Truth Social. But the real power wasn't in front of the cameras or on social media. It was sitting quietly in the back row. Because while the spotlight shows the performance, history is often written behind the scenes. The event took place at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel, a historic landmark on Front Street, Toronto's pride since 1929, the Canadian Club. Toronto often hosts big speeches there, and today was no exception. The Imperial Ballroom on the 3rd floor was completely full, 400 seats, everyone occupied. Business leaders, journalists, economists, and representatives from the automotive industry were all there, waiting to hear from Canada's Industry Minister, Melanie Joly. Canada was standing at a crucial moment. Donald Trump was launching a new threat almost every day: tariffs, sanctions, and economic attacks. Every morning brought another post from Truth Social, filled with anger directed at Canada. The hits kept coming: steel, aluminum, automobiles, lumber. Every sector felt the pressure. The big question was, how would Canada respond? At 2:30 p.m., the hall was packed. Familiar faces filled the front rows. Executives from Magna International, Al Steel, TD Bank, and RBC. In the middle sat analysts from the Munk School and the C.D. Howe Institute. But in the very back, by the window, sat a man in a navy blue suit, gray tie, and glasses: Mark Carney. Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada and Liberal Party leader, was not just a politician. He was Canada's most respected economist, a former governor of the Bank of Canada, and the first foreigner to lead the Bank of England. Before that, he spent 13 years at Goldman Sachs and was one of the key figures during the global financial crisis. Now he was quietly shaping Canada's economic future. All the cameras were on Joly, who was responsible for Canada's economy, steel, technology, automotive, and trade sectors. Today, she was unveiling what she called Canada's Economic Independence Manifesto. Joly stood backstage in a dark blue blazer and white shirt, her notes in hand. She wasn't reading them. She didn't need to. She had practiced for 3 weeks. Every word had been tested. Every pause had meaning. But there was something she didn't know. The strategic foundation of her speech had been written by the man sitting quietly in the back: Mark Carney. 2 weeks earlier in the Prime Minister's office, Joly had asked him, "What should I say?" Carney had given her honest but strategic advice. That same night, he opened his laptop and drafted the core of her speech, choosing every phrase carefully, deciding which words would provoke Trump and how Canada would respond when he did. This wasn't just a speech. It was a plan, a trap. Carney knew Trump's pattern: ego, anger, social media. The moment Joly said economic nationalism, Trump would react. When she mentioned Truth Social, he'd attack. And when that happened, Carney would already be ready, with his folder, his agreements, and his allies. The hall moderator stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Industry Minister Melanie Joly will begin her speech shortly." The lights dimmed. The projector lit up the Canadian flag and then Joly's name. The audience fell silent. Joly walked onto the stage with confidence. Her steps were quick and certain. Applause filled the hall. She reached the podium, adjusted the mic, took a breath, and began. Her opening lines were standard: greetings, acknowledgements, and thanks to the Canadian Club. But then her tone shifted. Her voice grew stronger. The first bold line came: "You know, there are many things we can't control. And honestly, you never know what might show up on Truth Social. You just don't know." Laughter filled the room. Everyone knew who she meant: Trump. She didn't need to say his name. Truth Social was his weapon, unpredictable and loud. Joly was polite but firm. Trump may be uncontrollable, but Canada would act with control and purpose. In the back, Carney checked his watch. The speech was live, streaming across social media. Trump would see it in 15 minutes. His reaction would come in 5 more. Carney quietly typed a message to 3 contacts in Tokyo, Seoul, and Canberra. "Stand by, deal ready in 20 minutes. Joly continued, "Economic strength is the backbone of national strength." A simple sentence, but powerful. Canada was declaring that it would stand on its own feet. She added, "Being overdependent on the U.S. is one of our biggest challenges." The audience reacted immediately. Long applause. People began to rise. For the first time in decades, someone had said it plainly. Canada's dependence on the U.S. had to end. Carney took notes. The energy in the room showed the plan was working. Canadians were ready for change, ready for independence. Then Joly went further. For too long, economic nationalism has been treated like a taboo. But this is the moment. We have no choice. The term had long been avoided because it sounded like isolation or protectionism. But the world had changed. Every major nation, the US, China, Europe, was now protecting its own interests first. Canada would do the same. Carney's phone buzzed. Tokyo ready, Seoul confirmed, Canberra standing by. The Allies were ready, the documents were waiting. Now all that was needed was Trump's reaction, the final spark. Joly moved into the heart of her message. We must think differently. We've played defense for too long. It's time to go on the offense. We will create jobs, protect our workers, and fight for every single job in the auto sector, the heart of Canada's economy. Ontario's auto industry, a lifeline for the country, had been Trump's constant target with tariffs and threats. But Joly's message was clear. Let me be super clear. Ontario's economy can't do well if the auto sector doesn't do well. And if Ontario doesn't do well, neither does Canada. I'm from Quebec, but this is a national fight. Applause thundered through the room, loud, long, emotional. Canadians wanted this kind of leadership, unity and courage. Then Carney's phone lit up again, a notification from Truth Social. Trump had posted, "Weak Canada, Joly thinks she can talk tough, she can't even protect her own jobs. Sad." Carney smiled. The trap had worked. Trump had reacted exactly as predicted, fast, emotional, aggressive. Now it was Carney's turn. He opened his folder. Inside were 3 trade agreements, with Japan, South Korea, and Australia, each ready to sign. He typed 3 quick messages. Trump just attacked. Time to sign. Let's announce in 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Joly was closing her speech. While some leaders post online, Canada builds. While others shout, we work. While they threaten, we deliver. This is the Canadian way. This is the moment Canada shows who we truly are. Applause erupted, louder than ever. The crowd stood, cheering and whistling. This wasn't just a policy speech, it was a declaration of economic independence. Joly smiled, waved, and walked off stage without answering reporters' questions. She knew the real story was still unfolding. In the back, Carney's phone buzzed again. 3 messages. Tokyo signed, Seoul signed, Canberra signed. He closed his folder, stood up quietly, and walked out. 10 minutes later, the Canadian government made an official announcement. Prime Minister Mark Carney, alongside the Prime Minister of Japan, the President of South Korea, and the Prime Minister of Australia, appeared in a joint video conference. The announcement was brief but historic, the creation of a new alliance, the Pacific Partnership for Economic Security. The agreement promised tariff-free trade, joint defense, technology sharing, and, most importantly, a system that worked independently of the United States. As the world watched this historic move, Trump continued tweeting, but few were paying attention anymore. Canada had made history. Headlines the next morning read, The Globe and Mail, Canada breaks free, new trade bloc formed after Joly's speech. The Financial Post, Carney's masterstroke, 4 nations unite as Trump tweets. The Star, economic nationalism works, Canada leads new Pacific alliance. In Washington, chaos followed. The White House called an emergency meeting. The U.S. suddenly found itself alone in the Pacific, outside a new trade bloc that included Canada, Japan, South Korea, and Australia. Trump's reaction? More angry tweets, but it no longer mattered. Later that evening, Carney sat in his office, a cup of coffee by his side. His phone buzzed, a message from Joly. They're calling it the Carney Doctrine, silence, strategy, and timing. Carney smiled, but didn't reply. The most power. Few leaders don't need to talk. They just act. That day in Toronto, the world witnessed 3 types of leadership. Joly, confident, bold, and fearless on stage. Trump, loud, reactive, and predictable online. Carney, silent, strategic, and effective in the shadows. The lights, cameras, and applause were for the stage, but history was written in the back row, quietly and intelligently. Carney may not have been seen that day, but everyone felt his impact, because sometimes real power doesn't shout, it simply wins. So what do you think? Was Melanie Joly's push for economic nationalism the right move? Was Mark Carney's quiet strategy the smarter one? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Maple Flash for more stories like this.